The night began like any other on Earth. The Pacific Ocean stretched calm and dark under a clear sky, stars blinking faintly between slow-moving clouds. Ships moved silently over the water, and in the coastal cities people slept, unaware that the world was about to change forever. Above the calm waves, satellites blinked in their orbits, sending data across the planet. Then one by one they began to fail. It started as a ripple in the upper atmosphere, something strange, invisible and silent. Astronomers first noticed it from an observatory in Chile. Their screens went white, instruments overloaded by a sudden flood of energy. At the same moment, radio towers in Tokyo, New York, and Paris flickered out. All communication stopped for exactly 12 seconds. Then the sky exploded in light. A column of pure white radiance tore through the clouds over the Pacific. It was brighter than the sun, yet it didn't burn or blind. It shimmered like flowing water, soft and alive. Planes that flew nearby were gently pushed away as if by a quiet wind. The light spread across the horizon, turning night into day. People woke up in confusion. Some thought it was war. Others thought it was a miracle. In a fishing village near the Philippines, old men ran to the shore, crossing themselves and whispering prayers. In San Francisco, people gathered on rooftops, holding up their phones even though there was no signal. In the International Space Station, astronauts stared in silence as the light reached them, passing harmlessly through the structure. And then out of the glowing column, something vast emerged, a ship. It was enormous, larger than any human creation. Its surface shimmered like silver mist, changing shape as if it were alive. It had no engines, no visible weapons, no lights, only a soft, pulsing glow that felt almost warm. The air around it hummed like a deep note from some ancient instrument. The world watched as it drifted slowly toward the Earth. Governments panicked. Militaries prepared missiles, though no one dared to fire first. Every camera, every telescope, every eye on the planet turned to that strange visitor in the sky. But the ship did not attack. It did not speak. It simply hovered above the ocean, silent and motionless. Then small spheres of light detached from its sides, hundreds of them, floating down toward the planet. They scattered like falling stars, spreading across continents. Each one glowed softly, drifting toward rivers, forests, cities, and deserts. When they touched the ground, something beautiful happened. The air grew clear. The water shimmered. Polluted rivers began to sparkle like crystal. In the Sahara, the wind slowed and sand turned damp with new life. In cities, people found the air suddenly fresh and easy to breathe. And for the first time in decades, the Earth smelled clean. Scientists on every continent began to take readings. The energy levels were unlike anything they had ever seen. It was not radiation or any known form of matter. It was something that repaired, healed, and restored. A small team in Geneva measured that the orbs were purifying carbon and regenerating natural systems at impossible speed. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it ended. The light faded. The orbs disappeared. The great ship turned slowly, drifting higher into the sky. It paused for a moment, hovering above the world it had just healed, as if taking one final look, and then it vanished beyond the clouds. No sound. No explosion, just silence. The people of Earth stood beneath the stars, staring at the empty sky. Some cried. Some prayed. Some simply smiled. It became known as the day the sky wept light. In the days that followed, chaos turned into wonder. News channels around the world showed endless footage of the event. Scientists gathered samples of purified air and soil, confirming what everyone could already feel. The planet was changing for the better. Ocean life began to return in places once dead. Forests that had been dry for years showed signs of sudden growth. It was as if Earth itself had been reborn. The United Nations held an emergency summit in Geneva. The leaders of every major nation attended, but no one knew what to say. Was this an invasion? A gift? A warning? Dr. Esha Malik, a physicist from India, spoke first. Whatever they were, she said softly, they did not come to destroy us. They came to help. Her words echoed around the hall. There was silence. Even the politicians, used to endless argument, found no words. For once the world agreed on something. They had been shown kindness, but the kindness raised questions. Why Earth? Why now? And who were they? The best minds studied the data left behind. The energy signature had no known origin. It wasn't from any element or field recorded by humanity. Some believed it was a form of controlled quantum resonance, capable of reorganizing matter at the molecular level. Others thought it was something far simpler, pure energy shaped by intention. Whatever it was, it had saved Earth from collapse. Months turned into years. The story spread into every corner of human life. Poets called them the shepherds of the sky. Children drew them in schools, tall glowing beings who healed the world. Artists painted murals of silver ships sailing through the heavens. Even religions adapted, calling them messengers, angels, or cosmic guardians. Humanity, once divided by war and greed, began to share a strange new unity. For the first time, nations stopped fighting, not because of fear, but because of hope. The shepherds became a symbol, a story larger than any one truth. Whether alien, divine, or something else, they had shown what it meant to give without asking for anything in return. Still, not everyone accepted the peace. Some said it was a trick, that the kindness hid a future threat. Others believed the ship was only the beginning of something greater. Conspiracy theories grew, but even they could not erase what had happened. Humanity had seen light in the sky. They had felt it heal their world. And deep down, every person on Earth knew one thing. Whoever those beings were, they had cared. 10 years later, the light's effects remained. Crops grew faster, diseases declined, and the climate stabilized. Scientists tried to replicate the energy but failed every time. The memory of the event became humanity's greatest mystery. At universities, students studied the Great Kindness, as historians named it. Old recordings of that glowing ship were displayed in museums, replayed endlessly. Families gathered every year on the anniversary of the event to watch the night sky, hoping it would return. And yet, the shepherds never came back. But even absence could not erase what they left behind. The human spirit had changed. Kindness became a movement, spreading through cultures like wildfire. People started to rebuild with care, to give as they had been given. The world slowly became brighter, not because of technology, but because people remembered how it felt to be saved. A young girl named Lyra Novan, only 8 years old during the event, stood with her mother one night watching the stars. "Will they come back, Mama?" she asked. Her mother smiled gently. "Maybe not," she said, "but maybe that's not the point. Maybe they wanted us to be like them." Those words stayed with Lyra her whole life, and years later, she would become the captain of the first human ship to travel beyond the Milky Way, to search for the ones who had once shown humanity kindness. That night over the Pacific remained eternal in memory. It was not just the day Earth was healed, it was the day humanity realized something greater than itself existed. Something that gave without reason, loved without knowing, and vanished without pride. The sky had wept light, and in that light humanity found its soul. 100 years had passed since the day the sky wept light. The world that once suffered from pollution, wars, and endless division was now green again. Rivers flowed clear, the air was fresh, and the oceans glowed with life. Cities shone clean and bright, powered by new energy discovered from the study of the mysterious light effect. Humanity called this new age the renewal. Children in schools learned about it from their first day of class. They watched old recordings of that silver ship appearing in the sky. Teachers told the story with pride, saying, "When we were at our weakest, they saved us. Remember that kindness and carry it forward." The event was no longer just a story. It was humanity's shared memory, a symbol of hope and gratitude. Every nation honored the beings who came from the stars, the ones they called the shepherds. A new world, the world was united under a peaceful alliance known as the Global Concord. Instead of building weapons, humanity built gardens, space stations, and schools that reached high above the clouds. Scientists worked together, engineers shared ideas freely, and artists filled cities with colors that celebrated life. For the first time in human history, there was no great war, no hunger, and no fear of the future. Still, deep inside the hearts of many, one question never faded: who were the shepherds? Some thought they were ancient beings of energy, travelers who saw a dying planet and chose to help. Others believed they were explorers like humans, a civilization that wanted to leave behind something beautiful before vanishing forever. Whatever the truth, humanity decided that their kindness should never be forgotten. Every year, on the same night the shepherd star appeared, people all around the world gathered under the sky. They lit lamps, candles, and floating lights on the ocean. The glow spread across continents like a wave of memory. Families sang songs and told stories about that day when the sky healed Earth. The Beacon Project begins. Among the new generation of dreamers was a group of scientists, historians, and explorers who believed the Shepherd's Act deserved more than gratitude. It deserved an answer. They called themselves the Beacon Project. The project started as a small research group at the Lunar Academy, built on the far side of the moon. Their goal was simple yet impossible: to find the Shepherds, wherever they were. Dr. Imani Kaur, the project's founder, believed that the energy left behind by the light could be used as a trail, a kind of cosmic fingerprint. "They healed our world," she said. "Maybe if we follow their light we can find where they came from." The idea spread quickly. People donated, volunteered, and offered resources. The Global Concord approved funding, and soon, thousands joined the mission. They began by collecting every record of the event: satellite data, radiation patterns, even stories from those who saw it. Over decades, they built massive arrays of sensors that listened to the stars for any trace of the same energy. For 90 years, they found nothing, but no one gave up. Humanity had learned something from the Shepherds: patience, kindness, and persistence. The world of light and memory, while the Beacon Project searched, life on Earth reached its brightest era. Cities floated over the oceans, forests grew on rooftops, and people traveled through the stars within their solar system. Mars had its first permanent colony, powered by fusion energy discovered from studying the remnants of the light's wavelength. The Shepherd's Act had not only healed Earth, it had given humanity the inspiration to evolve. Children played in clean rivers, unaware that a century ago those same waters were black with oil. People grew gardens in deserts where nothing once lived. Art, music, and science flourished together, each inspired by gratitude. Humanity had built temples not for worship, but for remembrance. In every city stood a monument of the light, a tall tower of white crystal that glowed gently at night. Inside, a message was carved in every known language: "They showed us kindness once. We will remember forever." Visitors came from across the world to leave flowers, notes, and even pieces of art. Some cried. Some smiled. Everyone felt something deep within, the connection between what humanity was and what it had become. The storyteller of the Shepherds in the capital city of New Avalon. An old man named Elder Rohan worked as a storyteller at the Monument of the Light. Every evening, children gathered around him as he told the story of the great kindness. He spoke slowly, with warmth in his voice. They came when the Earth was sick. They didn't speak. They didn't ask. They just helped. And then they left, trusting us to remember. A small boy raised his hand. "Why didn't they come back, Elder?" Rohan smiled gently. "Maybe because they wanted us to learn to be kind ourselves. If they returned every time we were in trouble, we would never grow strong." The children nodded, though they didn't fully understand, but in their hearts they felt the truth. One of those children was a young girl named Lyra Novan, the daughter of a Beacon Project scientist. She listened closely, her eyes full of light. Every night she stared at the stars, wondering if the Shepherds could see her from afar. Her dream was simple: to find them and say thank you. The discovery years turned into decades. Humanity reached new heights, but still, the Beacon Project's sensors remained silent. Many began to lose hope. Funding slowed. Governments turned their attention to other missions. Dr. Imani Kaur grew old but never stopped believing. Before her death, she recorded her final message: "If we are the children of kindness, then we must carry that kindness to the stars. One day someone will find them. And when that happens, the light will shine again." Her message became legendary, and the Beacon Project continued in her name. A century after her passing, a faint signal was detected beyond the edge of the Orion Arm, a pulse of energy matching the exact pattern of the Shepherd's light. It was weak, distant and fading, but it was real. The news spread across the entire human civilization like fire. People filled the streets in celebration. Bells rang, lights shone, and messages of hope were sent across the solar system. Humanity had waited for this moment for 200 years. The Global Concord immediately authorized a mission to investigate. A new kind of ship was designed, sleek, fast, and capable of crossing galaxies using the same principles. Inspired by the shepherd's energy, they named it Aurora, the light that returns, and the one chosen to lead the mission was none other than Captain Lyra Novan, the girl who once listened to Elder Rohan's stories under the Monument of the Light. Humanity's promise before the Aurora launched. People across the world gathered once more under the sky. They lit lamps and candles, just as their ancestors did a century ago. Captain Lyra stood on the launch platform, looking down at the glowing sea of lights. She spoke to the crowd and to all of humanity through the broadcast. Her voice was calm, strong, and filled with emotion. We are here today because they showed us kindness once. They saved our world and gave us hope. Now it is our turn to return that kindness, to find them, to honor them, and to make sure their light never fades. The people cheered. Many wept. That night, as the Aurora's engines came to life, the sky once again glowed, not with alien light, but with human determination. Humanity had changed. They were no longer just survivors of a broken world. They were seekers of meaning, travelers of gratitude, a universe waiting. From the highest peaks to the deepest oceans, people watched as the Aurora rose slowly into the stars. It shone like a second shepherd star, leaving behind a trail of golden light. Children pointed at it and whispered, "They're going to find them." Elder Rohan, now very old, watched from his window. His eyes filled with tears, but his heart was peaceful. "The story continues," he said softly. And somewhere beyond the stars, perhaps far beyond human reach, a faint pulse of light flickered, almost as if answering. The age of renewal had become the age of remembrance. Humanity had kept its promise. They would never forget the day the sky wept light. They would follow that light wherever it led. The ship Aurora waited in silent orbit above Earth, glowing softly like a silver tear against the darkness. It was the most advanced vessel ever built, sleek, graceful, and alive with quiet energy. Every line of its hull carried the memory of the shepherds. Its engines used a drive based on the mysterious light that had healed the planet centuries ago. Humanity had learned to mimic only a small part of that power, but it was enough to take them farther than anyone had ever gone. At the center of the bridge stood Captain Lyra Novan, tall and calm, her eyes fixed on the planet below. Earth shone blue and white beneath her, a living proof of what kindness could create. "Status report," she said softly. Her crew responded in clear, steady voices. "All systems ready, Captain. Quantum drive calibrated, crew secured, course plotted for the Orion boundary." Lyra nodded. "Then let's make history." As the countdown began, she thought of her mother, who once stood beneath the Monument of Light, and of Elder Rohan's stories about the shepherds. She had promised herself long ago that if humanity ever had the chance to thank them, she would be the one to do it. "Engage drive," she ordered. The stars outside stretched into rivers of light. The Aurora leapt forward, and within seconds it vanished beyond the solar system. The first leap. The crew of the Aurora numbered 27 men and women, scientists, engineers, explorers, and dreamers. None of them carried weapons. The ship had no armor, no defense systems. Their mission was not to fight, but to learn, to seek, and to remember. Lyra watched through the observation window as the familiar stars faded behind them. In their place appeared the endless black of intergalactic space. It was silent, vast, and humbling. For the first few months, everything went smoothly. The crew studied new stars, mapped empty systems, and sent daily reports back to Earth. Every message ended with the same line: "For the shepherds. For the light." Yet as they traveled farther, strange things began to happen. The deeper they went, the more they noticed patterns, soft pulses of light that flickered through the void. They were faint, almost invisible, but their rhythm was familiar. Dr. Aiken, the ship's chief scientist, analyzed them for weeks. "It's the same frequency," he whispered one night. "The same energy signature from the day of light." The crew gathered around the data screens, watching as the faint signals appeared like footsteps across the stars. "They're leading us somewhere," Lyra said quietly. Through the darkness, months turned into years. The crew grew used to silence, long distances, and the endless black. Yet their hope never faded. Every small signal felt like a greeting, a whisper from those who had once saved their world. They passed through nebulae where colors danced like living fire, through systems filled with broken moons and through ruins of worlds long dead. Sometimes they saw traces of civilizations. Cities turned to dust, monuments carved into stone, ships drifting empty for centuries. Dr. Aiken recorded everything. "We are not the first to travel this way," he said. "But perhaps we are the first who came with peace." Lyra often stood alone on the viewing deck staring at the stars. "Kindness lasts longer than empires," she said to herself. "Maybe that's what they wanted us to understand." Her first officer, Lieutenant Ryan Hale, joined her one evening. "Do you really think we'll find them, Captain?" Lyra smiled faintly. "Maybe not. But if they're gone, then we'll find what they left behind. Either way, we'll keep their light alive." The silent world. After 6 years of travel, the Aurora detected something strange. A dead star system at the edge of the galaxy, orbiting a fading red sun. The same faint energy signature pulsed there, stronger than anywhere else. "Prepare for approach," Lyra ordered. As they entered the system, the crew fell silent. Ahead of them floated a planet covered in ice and dust. And orbiting that planet was a massive shape, a wrecked vessel, half buried in the shadow of a moon. It was unmistakable. The design, the structure, the glow beneath its broken hull, it was the same as the shepherd star that once appeared over Earth. The bridge went quiet. Even the sound of the engine seemed to fade. Dr. Aiken's voice trembled as he whispered, "We found them." Lyra's heart tightened. The great ship looked peaceful in its ruin, as if it had fallen asleep after a long journey. Pieces of its surface still shimmered with soft white light, pulsing like a dying heartbeat. They descended slowly, their ship's lights brushing over ancient markings and symbols carved into the alien metal. The last message, inside the wreck. Time had stood still. The air shimmered faintly with frozen particles of energy, untouched for centuries. The crew walked carefully through vast halls of silver, past broken chambers and silent corridors. In the center of the ship, they found what looked like a crystal archive, rows of transparent pillars filled with faintly glowing lines. Lyra placed her hand on one of them. The light reacted, spreading through the chamber like ripples on water. A soft voice echoed in the air, not in any known language, but somehow the crew understood. It was not a sound but a feeling, a message carried through emotion and light. "We are the shepherds. We saw your world dying. We had little time left, but we gave what remained to heal it. If you are hearing this, then our journey has ended, but our hope lives in you." The crew stood in silence, tears glimmering in their eyes. The message continued, soft and full of warmth. "We did not come for worship or memory. We came because life is rare and kindness must survive even when we do not." Lyra closed her eyes. The words filled her with both sorrow and pride. They had not saved Earth for reward. They had done it simply because they could. Dr. Aiken recorded every part of the message, his hands shaking. "They knew they were dying," he said softly. "They used their last strength to save us." The crystal dimmed, its light fading until only a faint glow remained. The second light, the crew returned to the Aurora, silent and thoughtful. They had found the truth, but it came with pain. The shepherds were gone. Lyra sat alone in her cabin, staring at a small piece of the crystal she had brought back. It glowed faintly in her hand. "They gave us everything," she whispered. "We can't just leave their world in darkness." An idea formed in her mind, one that felt impossible yet right. She called the crew to the bridge. "We're going to light their sun again," she said. Dr. Aiken stared at her. "That star is almost dead, Captain. We don't have the power. Maybe not alone," Lyra said. "But we have what they gave us, their energy, their light. We'll give it back." They began the work immediately. Using the Aurora's energy core, they directed the same quantum resonance the shepherds once used to heal Earth. The process was dangerous. It could destroy their ship. But no one hesitated. As the engines roared and the light built around them, Lyra spoke quietly into the ship's log. "To the shepherds, thank you for saving our world. Now we save yours." The energy burst outward, flooding the dying sun with light. For a moment, the entire system blazed like dawn. The dead star flared alive again, its warmth spreading across the frozen planet below. From space, the world glowed with a new sunrise. The crew watched in silence, hearts full. The Aurora drifted in orbit, bathed in golden light. Dr. Aiken whispered, "We gave them a second light." Lyra smiled through tears. and now they'll never be forgotten. The return home. After setting a beacon around the restored star, the crew prepared to return home. The beacon would send the shepherd's message to anyone who came after, a message of kindness, of giving, of hope. As the Aurora turned toward the distant Milky Way, Lyra took one last look at the shining sun behind them. "We found them," she whispered, "and we did what they would have done." The journey back would take years, but it no longer felt long. Humanity had found its origin of hope, and they had answered it with their own. When the Aurora finally entered the path home, the stars ahead seemed brighter. Somewhere deep in the void, the light of a long-dead civilization shone once more, kept alive by the kindness of humankind. The Aurora drifted silently through the void, leaving behind a system reborn with light. The once dead star now burned gently, its warmth seeping over the frozen world below, giving it the first sunrise in centuries. The crew had achieved something extraordinary, not through conquest, not through strength, but through care, patience, and ingenuity. Captain Lyra Novan stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the distant planet. She still held the small shard of crystal from the shepherd's ship in her hand, its glow faint but alive. She remembered the message. We did not come for reward. We came because life is rare, and kindness must survive even when we do not. Those words had guided her through years of travel, through the silence of space, through loneliness and fear. Now, after seeing the star flare again, she finally felt the weight of understanding. Humanity had found the shepherds, and in their absence, had returned their gift. Sharing the discovery, the Aurora's first transmissions back to Earth carried more than data. They carried the story of a civilization that had chosen kindness over self-preservation. The reports reached every human colony from Mars to Europa, from the floating cities of the Pacific to the forests of the new Amazon. Everywhere people stopped. They listened, they watched, they cried. For 2 centuries, the memory of the shepherds had been kept alive in stories, songs, and art. Now, humanity had proof. They had been real, they had existed, and their act of giving had changed the course of an entire species. The news inspired a renewed sense of purpose. Scientists, explorers, artists, and leaders understood that humanity was no longer just a survivor species. It was a guardian, a keeper of the values shown by the shepherds. Lyra recorded her own message for Earth, her voice calm, filled with emotion. They showed us kindness once. We have found them, and in their absence we have returned their light. Let their memory guide us, let their example teach us, and let all that we do honor what they gave us. The broadcast spread across every system, reaching millions, touching hearts in ways even the shepherds might not have imagined. The lessons of the past, in the quiet moments between reports and readings, the crew studied the shepherd's ship. They found traces of technology and energy manipulation far beyond anything humans had ever created. But even more than the science, they found traces of philosophy, an understanding that life, even in a vast and sometimes cruel universe, must be protected, nurtured, and remembered. Dr. Aiken often walked the halls of the ship, speaking softly to the empty corridors. They knew what it meant to be responsible for life, he said one evening. We have to be better than we were, Captain. They left us this challenge, Lyra nodded. They didn't ask for anything. And yet they gave everything. That is the kind of civilization we must become. The crew began to record the lessons they learned, the energy patterns, the crystal archives, the methods for reigniting stars, and the philosophy embedded in every design. They called it the Legacy of Light, a manual not only for science but for life. Returning the favor, but the Aurora's mission was not yet complete. Lyra knew that finding the shepherd's ship was only the first step. Their gift had been given freely, and now humanity had an opportunity to show the same generosity. She convened a council of the crew. We cannot simply return to Earth and tell the story. We must act. Their world is lonely, forgotten, almost dead. We gave it a second sunrise, but there is more we can do. We can seed life, restore ecosystems, and leave behind more than light. We can leave hope. The crew agreed, inspired and united. They began planning ways to use their knowledge and energy to restore the planet further. Small biomes, self-sustaining ecosystems, and energy sources that could survive long after humans left. Every member felt the weight of responsibility. The shepherds had entrusted them with a universe of possibilities. Humanity would honor that trust. A second message before leaving the restored system, Lyra transmitted a final message to the void. To the shepherds, we are here. Your gift is not forgotten. Your light lives through us. May all who see it know that kindness has power beyond measure. She knew the message might never reach them. The shepherds had vanished long ago, their civilization gone. But in sending the words, she felt a connection, an echo of gratitude across time and space. In the silence that followed, the Aurora's sensors picked up a faint pulse, a repetition of the shepherd's energy pattern. It was fleeting, barely detectable, but enough to make the crew smile. Perhaps it was not a response, but a memory left behind, lingering in the universe. The return journey. The journey back was long, but different this time. The crew moved with purpose, no longer burdened by doubt. The Aurora was a vessel not only of exploration, but of legacy. They carried knowledge, life, and the memory of a civilization that had once chosen to save another. As they passed through new star systems, they left small markers, records of what they had learned, maps of the restored planet, and energy beacons that could guide future travelers. They knew humanity had become more than just inhabitants of Earth. They were now guardians, explorers and messengers of kindness, a new myth back on Earth. The news of the Aurora's discovery spread like a wave. Humanity marveled at the courage, the patience, and the dedication of the crew. Monuments were built, songs were written, and stories were told, not only of the shepherds but of humans who had followed their example. Children now learned of the second light, the rebirth of the shepherd's world, and of the explorers who brought hope to the edge of the galaxy. It became clear that the myth of the shepherds was no longer just a story. It was a shared history, a living memory, and a guiding principle for the entire species. The monuments of the great kindness now included statues of humans, like Captain Lyra and her crew, standing alongside the shepherds, symbolizing the continuity of care and compassion across generations. Reflections of humanity. Captain Lyra often stood on the Aurora's observation deck during the long journey home, thinking about what they had done. The universe was vast and life was fragile, yet she felt hope, a quiet, enduring hope. The shepherds saved us, she whispered to herself. And now we've saved something of them. Lieutenant Hale joined her. Do you think they'll ever know? Lyra smiled faintly. Maybe not. But it doesn't matter. They did what they could and we did what we must. That is enough. That is the meaning of kindness. Somewhere in the distance beyond human sight, stars twinkled like tiny mirrors of their effort. The Aurora moved among them, carrying the lessons of a long-vanished race and the promise of humanity's enduring light. The promise of forever. As the Aurora neared the boundary of human-controlled space, a new understanding settled among the crew. They were no longer just explorers. They were keepers of memory, carriers of hope. The shepherd's legacy had passed into human hands, and in honoring that legacy, humans had begun to write their own story among the stars. The second light, the light of humanity returned to the universe, would shine for generations, a testament to the power of kindness, memory, and courage, somewhere far beyond Earth. On a world almost forgotten, life had a second chance, and humanity, in remembering and acting, had become a force of hope in a vast, lonely universe. The Aurora returned to the solar system like a silver comet blazing softly through the stars. Its crew carried with them a story older than most of human history, a story of kindness, courage, and the legacy of those who had once saved Earth. Captain Lyra Novan stood on the bridge, watching as planets grew larger in the viewport. Home. Earth. The world that had been healed, nurtured and now preserved, loomed below. It glowed with life, green and blue, vibrant beyond imagination. The people of Earth and its colonies across the solar system had been waiting. All systems transmitted signals to welcome the Aurora back. Cities, space stations, and orbital settlements lit up in celebration. Humanity's first long-distance journey to meet a legend had ended, not in battle, not in conquest, but in truth. A world united. Since the Aurora's departure, humanity had grown even further. The story of the shepherds and the second light had spread across the stars. The message was simple. Kindness has power. Compassion can change worlds. A single act of giving can echo across centuries and galaxies. Schools on Mars taught children about the day the sky wept light. On Luna, holograms displayed the ship and its gift. Even colonies beyond Jupiter celebrated the anniversary of the Aurora's mission. Humanity had become a species defined not only by intelligence or strength, but by the choice to remember and act upon what had been given. In cities and villages, statues of the shepherds stood alongside depictions of Lyra and her crew. The monument read, "They showed us kindness once. We made them eternal. It was more than a story. It was a lesson, a promise, and a guiding star for all who lived under human skies." Sharing the legacy, the Aurora's crew presented their findings to the global Concord. Dr. Aiken spoke first. "We have learned from the shepherds," he said, "not just their technology, but their philosophy. Life is precious. Helping another species, even when it is not required, is the truest act of strength." Lyra addressed the assembly, her voice steady and proud. "The shepherds gave us hope. We followed their light. And now we have returned it. But this is only the beginning. Humanity must carry this light forward to every world we touch, to every star we reach." The Concord approved a new mission, the expansion of light. Humanity would not just explore the galaxy, they would inspire it. They would teach, heal, and share knowledge wherever life could be found. The crew of the Aurora would serve as the first emissaries, but soon, countless others would follow. Humanity's role had changed. They were no longer just inhabitants of a single world. They were messengers of hope, carriers of a universal promise. Across the stars years passed, and humans spread beyond the solar system. They established colonies on planets rich with life and others that had none. Wherever they went, they left behind signs of kindness, seeds, clean water, knowledge, and stories of the shepherds. Lyra oversaw the first interstellar colony missions. She often thought about the long-dead civilization that had once saved Earth. Their gift had set in motion a chain of events no one could have predicted. One day, while orbiting a vibrant exoplanet, she watched children playing under alien suns. Their laughter reminded her of her own childhood, under the monument of light. She realized that humanity had become what the shepherds had hoped for, a species that remembers, that gives back, and that chooses kindness above all else. A universe remembering, the story of the second light spread beyond human colonies. Other intelligent species, newly contacted, learned of humanity's history. They were inspired by the message, helping one another is stronger than fear. Love can survive absence, and memory can create eternity. In some distant systems, monuments were erected in honor of the event. In others, humans taught children the principles of compassion, science, and exploration together. The legend of the shepherds became intertwined with the legend of humans, the two civilizations forever linked by one act of kindness. On Earth, the monument of the light continued to shine every night. Pilgrims from across the stars traveled to see it, leaving notes, art, and music. They came to honor not just the shepherds, but humanity itself, for following the example they had been shown. The eternal flame captain Lyra, now older but still full of quiet strength, stood once again on the bridge of a new ship, the Aurora II, designed to continue the mission across galaxies. She reflected on everything they had done. "They gave us light," she whispered, "and we made it eternal." Her crew smiled. They had seen firsthand the power of one act of kindness, and how humanity had amplified it across time and space. Lyra's thoughts wandered to the faint pulse the Aurora had detected in that distant system, the remnants of the shepherd's energy. She believed it was not gone entirely. Somehow, somewhere, a piece of their civilization lived on in memory, preserved by the very species they had saved. That memory, and humanity's commitment to it, was now eternal, a promise across generations. Children born centuries later still learned of the day the sky wept light. Families told stories of Captain Lyra and her crew. Scientists studied the second light. Explorers dreamed of returning to the systems humanity had restored. And every year, on the anniversary of the shepherd's visit, Earth and its colonies paused. Lamps floated in oceans, candles glowed in cities, and soft songs filled the air. It was not a day of mourning or fear. It was a day of gratitude, a celebration of memory, of kindness, and of what it means to be truly human. The lessons of the past guided the future. Help others, honor life, and remember those who showed you what is possible. Humanity's enduring light over centuries. Humans became known across the galaxy not as conquerors, but as protectors. They healed dying planets, shared knowledge freely, and preserved the lessons of the shepherds. The original message from the shepherds, the act of giving without expectation, had become humanity's guiding principle. And humanity, in return, spread that principle further than any being could have imagined. Even as humans evolved, adapted, and settled new worlds, the story never faded. Every child knew the legend. Every explorer remembered it. Every leader sought to honor it. The shepherds had saved Earth once. Humanity had made their kindness eternal. The final reflection. In her final days, Captain Lyra stood once more beneath the sky of her home world. Stars stretched endlessly above her, countless suns shining through the dark. She thought of the silver ship, the light that had healed Earth and the generations that followed. "They are eternal," she whispered, tears glistening, "because we remembered, because we acted, because we gave back what we were given." And in the quiet, it felt as if the universe itself agreed. Somewhere, far beyond human sight, a faint pulse of light shimmered, a reminder that kindness, once given, never truly ends. The eternal flame of memory, hope, and gratitude burned brightly in the hearts of humanity. The shepherd's gift had become more than a story. It had become a way of life, a guiding star for every human who would follow. And so across the stars, humanity carried its light forward, always remembering, always giving, always honoring the kindness that had shown them the way.